everyone. It's an honor to be here at Notes 25. And today we will present a research project that we are doing at the University of Buenos Aires. It's a project that we are doing with Victoria, Sergio, and Juan. And this will be the agenda for today. We will begin with a small motivation. Then we will take our data sources, our process of ETL, then our data model, and finally the network, the knowledge graph, and what's next. So, as I said, we are at the University of Buenos Aires. Specifically, we are at the Complex Systems and Networks Laboratory at the Instituto Interdisciplinario de Economía Política, Interdisciplinary Institute of Political Economy. And here we are. So this is our school, the Faculty of Economics at the University of Buenos Aires. And this is our office where it all began. So let me start with a small motivation. We were wondering, how do Argentine researchers collaborate? What are the patterns that we can see? And specifically, we wanted to build a tool that could be useful for different type of users. As I mentioned, we are all part of a very large university, and I am a student. Victoria and Sergio are professors there. Juan is also a student. So we all were in need of some tools, something useful to help us find collaborations, to help us find research opportunities. And we saw that even the university policymakers, the university administrators, were interested in this sort of tool that could help discover knowledge about the research opportunities in Argentina. So I don't know how many people are from Argentina here, but as you can imagine, the ecosystem in Argentina doesn't differ very much from other scientific systems around the world. Basically, we have a vast network, multiple organizations, and what is the problem? Siloed data. So naturally, we wanted to delve deeper and try to find something that we could use. So today we will use data that comes from CIGEVA, which is systems where users, researchers, authors can self-report the publications, the projects that they are working on. So all this information coming from different universities, different institutes gets to the Ministry of Science, of Innovation, Science and Technology, and that's where the work began. So we will work today with data from 2011 to 2019 from the ministry, as I mentioned, and basically we have more than 45,000 researchers, 15,000 projects, and more than 7.5 million collaborations. So here, when we talk about collaborations, we will talk about people working on the same project. It can be at the same time or on a different time, but today we will not work with publications. And it's not all of the projects from Argentina, it's from major funding sources, but it represents a great part of the overall picture. So in a nutshell, the process went from basically extracting data from the ministry. These were open data. They were open to the public, basically bunch of CSV and Excel files. And first, we were working with RStudio, with the R language, to try to explore this data, to try to understand what we have in our hands. But immediately we realized that since we were working with what essentially were a network, we could really use a graph database. And since I had some prior experience with Neo4j, and it offered really interesting features, we naturally went with Neo4j for that. And that changed a lot because for the first time, we could see not tables, not CSV files, but the actual network that we were working with. And it even helped us to disambiguate certain data. For example, we had a really recurrent problem where we have two different people, or what appeared to be two different people with the same name. And in some cases, it was pretty obvious that it was the same person because the name was very strange and the network of the two persons was indeed the same. But in other cases, it was hard to tell just by looking at the tables. So when we were using Neo4j, we could actually compare the different networks of these different people and get an idea of maybe it's the same person after all. And that helped us a lot. So after some processing, we built our data model, which is pretty standard. You can see we have an organization, researchers, projects. Here, projects can fall under different type of areas, sub-areas, or disciplines. These were established by the ministry, and this defined the interdisciplinary aspects of the network. And then we have a very complicated hierarchical network around the organizations, because we go from really huge organizations like ministries or universities to very small, like a department or a chair. We also have some geographical data, but that was very messy because most data from Argentina was up to date and was actually quite rich, but with about foreign institutions, we couldn't use it too much. So we will center around researchers, projects, and sub-areas. So first, we built a tripartite network involving these three types of entities, and that allowed us to build two separate bipartite networks, and then these projections that you can see here. So we say that two researchers collaborate, as I mentioned, when they share a project, and we add a weight to that collaboration regarding how many projects were they working on. And this is a temporal network. So we have a network for each of the years that we were checking, analyzing. And then we also define interdisciplinary as a project that shares different types of disciplines. In this case, we will work with sub-areas because it gives us a better view of this collaboration. And this is what it looks like when we focus on the researcher's projection. So as you can see here, this is a sample we took from 2011. There's a clear, huge component in the middle. And then we have sort of small islands floating around. And we have color-coded this to see what type of disciplines are involved here. So just to mention a few, when you can see the magenta, that's people. This is people, by the way, these are researchers. So when you see the magenta color, this is someone who works across many sub-areas. So this is someone who has participated in projects, maybe from the social sciences or the natural sciences and so on. And then we have, for example, the blue one, which is natural sciences, the orange one, which represents engineering. And it's interesting to see which types of disciplines are more prone to collaboration between other disciplines that are beyond the area. And what we notice here is that most of the interdisciplinary collaboration was between the natural sciences and the social sciences. And some of the most sort of monodisciplinary projects were around medical research or engineering. And beyond this network, which we are using to analyze the topological features of the Argentine research landscape, we were interested in building a tool, maybe not for the academic community, but for day-to-day users. As I mentioned, students, researchers, professors, or even university administrators who could use it to get insights about the research opportunities, the structural holes that are in the Argentine research landscape. So here's a preview of this knowledge graph. This is still early stage. We are beginning to build and enrich this graph. But here we wanted to show you our own home here, the University of Buenos Aires, Universidad de Buenos Aires, and our institute. And here you can see researchers, the ones in yellow, participating in different types of projects. And this is the basis of the work that we want to build. We want to build a huge network and eventually even connect the projects and the scientific publication networks to make this useful tool for the community. And we thought that in order to be really useful, it should be accessible using natural language. So here we are presenting our tech stack, which is pretty standard for lots of the, as I saw in many different talks. Basically, we are using Neo4j for the database, and we are using LangChain to build the architecture of the whole system. We are running local models using Olama to test the process and to save on computing. And then we are using Gemini models, specifically Gemini Pro and Gemini Flash, which gave us the best results. And finally, we are using Streamlit to quickly prototyping what this could look like. And let me show you what this looks like. So basically here, this is a video that I recorded in order to avoid any issues with the internet connection. So here I will ask the platform about research connections, collaborations between two universities. For this example, I use my alma mater, Universidad de Buenos Aires and Universidad de Barcelona, because when we were exploring the data, we saw that there were plenty of collaborations between these two. So let me tell you how this works while the video runs. Basically, after I submit the question, we are using a large language model to try to understand what the user is asking about. And we are giving it the schema, the database schema, so we can generate a Cypher query to query the graph. This is the query that the model has come up with. And as you can see, once the model gets the query, it gets done really fast. So here it already has context. So now we gave the model this context, this information that was on the database, and we also gave it the question, and the model generated this answer. So basically it's telling the user, in this case, it's telling me that there are 3 projects between the Universidad de Buenos Aires, University of Buenos Aires, and the University of Barcelona, involving these researchers. So let me show you a little bit more ways in which you can interact with this graph. Here, we are basically asking information about a specific researcher. In this case, we use our own Victoria Semeshenko because we know her projects and we could easily tell if the model was telling the truth or not. And here it makes a summarization of the projects that she worked on during this period that we are analyzing. And you can even ask in Spanish. As I mentioned, we are in Argentina, so naturally we wanted to make it useful in language, in our language. So here we are asking about projects on climate change and which researchers are involved in these projects. And it got all of these projects by looking at the abstract and at the title. And clearly, something that we are planning to do is explore the possibility of, instead of checking the actual text, work also with embeddings, because sometimes, as you probably know, we ask a question, but the answer is not literal. It will not, maybe there's a very interesting project that doesn't mention cambio climático or climate change with these words, but it sort of involves climate change. So that would be actually captured by an embedding approach. And that's what we will do next. So what's next, basically? As I mentioned, we built this collaboration network using Neo4j, which is the first scientific collaboration built in Argentina using this approach. And While doing this, we realized we could actually build a tool uh, as a side project, because everything began with a research paper, but immediately we realized we could also build a useful tool. So now we are building this knowledge graph, which we envision as an open tool for the community, maybe the research community at our university, other universities, or even people from the ministry. And in order to achieve this, we have received support from the university to go from a research project to a knowledge discovery platform. So we think this approach of using graphs to capture these complex networks of collaboration can go even beyond academic research. Right now, we are working and focused on this, but we think this approach can easily be translated to other domains. And we have seen in this conference many different teams working on this approach. So without further ado, yeah, let me say thank you, and thank you for coming. Yes.